This is Jake Roberts. But no doubt, you must be listening to the interactive interview. And you better keep listening.
Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Interactive Interview. As always, we're courtesy of ProWrestling.com, statistically the #1 wrestling website on the internet today, and our special guest is a legend of the ring, a former member of the Four Horsemen. Please welcome Tully Blanchard. Tully, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Great to hear that. First question we have for you, and so you know, a lot of these questions came from the internet and your fans on the internet. First question we have for you is: since your father was involved in the business, did he at all encourage you to get involved?
I was involved. I mean, I started selling peanuts and stuff at age 10.
Wow.
So that made you be involved. And I used to put out window cards and put out flyers and stuff for big shows when I was a kid. So you are involved. And then he encouraged me to, he gave me jobs to do, setting up rings and stuff like that. So, you just there, so you get involved.
Who were some of your favorites to watch when you were growing up?
I didn't really have. When I was in high school, I played football. I wasn't really a big wrestling fan, and didn't go to the wrestling matches much when I got past the age of selling peanuts and soda pops and stuff like that. But when I was learning the wrestling business, the people that influenced me were probably Terry and Dory Funk and Harley Race and Flair and Wahoo McDaniels and Johnny Valentine and the people that were the great ones of their time.
You played college football with Tito Santana and Ted DiBiase. How far did you take that career?
With who was the first one you said?
Tito Santana.
Your football days, yeah.
Yes. And the question was again. I apologize. I was concentrating on Tito.
How far did you take your career in football?
Oh, I just played in college, and that was I started 3 years at quarterback at West Texas State, which is now West Texas A&M. And Tito Santana was a very good football player. He played a year up in Canada, and then was the last cut with the Kansas City Chiefs 1 year, and then came with me to Florida, and which was the first place that I went to wrestle, and he came down there to learn and started, and then he got a job up in Atlanta, and then his career went on.
Who trained you for wrestling?
My dad did a little bit. Jose Lothario did a lot, and then a lot of in-the-ring experience from people that... Go ahead.
No, sorry, go ahead. Continue.
No, just guys that my dad would book me against that were veterans and taught me to be a ring technician. But I think one of the biggest things that helped me learn to do what I did was the fact that I refereed for 3 years. And instead of being in the ring once a night, I was in the ring 5 or 6 times a night, and I was involved in main event matches, and I saw how the greats of that time performed and executed the things in the ring, and it probably accelerated my career by 10 years.
Did you ever try to change any of the things in your father's promotion?
I changed a lot of the things in our promotion.
Can you name anything specifically?
Oh, I was the booker and did the TV show, and I did a lot of that kind of stuff. The things I didn't do was go book the buildings and book the towns. I scheduled the towns. I booked them and produced the TV show for quite a while. And when we first got on the USA Cable Network, I was booking and doing the TV shows then.
How did you enjoy teaming with Gino Hernandez in World Class?
Actually, we were not in World Class.
You weren't?
I didn't. I never really worked for Dallas.
Oh.
But Gino and I were partners in Houston and in San Antonio and around, and we had it was a very good combination. We did very well in those cities for a couple of years, and Gino had his quirks, and as all of us did, but he was a professional, and when it came to doing stuff in the ring, he executed and did stuff very, very well, and we worked very, very well together.
In very recent years, the drug use in the business has become a very dangerous fact. Were you ever caught up with the demons, and what are your opinions on drug use in wrestling?
Well, I mean, drug usage is everywhere, not just in wrestling. I mean, a lot of the things in my life I kept on a recreational basis, and I did, and part of my testimony is the simple fact that I failed a cocaine test for the WWF in 1989, which ultimately caused me to be out of wrestling when the Lord changed my life because of that incident. But it was, we just got more exposure, because we were a small group that had a lot of exposure, so you get and find out a lot more who's doing what. But, I mean, it's no different than a lot of corporations and a lot of other things that guy, I mean, when I used to go out at night and go to a nightclub, I mean, half the executives and wannabe executives were all over there snorting cocaine in the bathroom and chasing girls just like I was.
Here's a question from forum member Mr. Rick Bear. He wants to know if you have any opinion on the death of Gino Hernandez.
Do I have any opinion on the death of Gino Hernandez?
Yeah, that's right.
Other than the fact that he overdosed on cocaine, or there again, I just assume it was cocaine because that was his drug of choice. Whenever I was around him, I didn't know that there was any other opinion of that, or any other thoughts on that.
Another question. This one's from Rusty Brooks. He wants to know if you had any idea that the Four Horsemen would be as big as it became.
Nobody had any idea that the Four Horsemen would be as big as it became because it wasn't a promotional generated thing. I mean, we didn't sit up in a room one day and said, we're going to start calling ourselves the Four Horsemen. And we were just booked in an 8-man tag match, and Rick was advertised as Ole Anderson's cousin, and Arn was advertised as Ole Anderson's nephew, so those three were family, and it was logical for them to be in there, and then they added me to the group just because I had a feud with with Dusty Rhodes in the thing, and Arn called us the Four Horsemen, and it caught on, and the wrestling fans really, the more they kept scheduling us in 8-man tag matches, the more that caught on, and there for a while, and then the fans really are the ones that created the group, and anything that would be fan generated is so out of the norm for that business, it couldn't help but be overwhelmingly successful.
Daniel, take the next one.
You just mentioned it, but what memories do you have of the feud with Dusty Rhodes?
What happened to the feud with me and Dusty?
No, what is your memory?
You have?
What memories I have?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Large paychecks. Lots of main events. It was Dusty was a very, very talented guy, and a lot of people had a lot of negative things to say about his abilities, which I think were all disproved. He had a lot of short matches in his career, but for 4 years when he wrestled me most of the time, he had a lot of long matches in his career, and people didn't always think that he had the ability to do that. But he was a great athlete, played semi-pro baseball and college football, and was a dynamic entertainer and performer in the ring. And I was fortunate to be in the position where I was the name that they wrote down a lot for 4 years, and it kept my career booming.
A big debate that's been the talk of many of the listeners of the show is how do the Horsemen compare to the NWO? And a lot of the listeners would like to know what's your opinion on how the Horsemen compare to the NWO.
Well, it's imitation is the greatest form of flattery, and the success of the Horsemen has always, they've tried to duplicate. They tried, when Arn and I left and went to the WWF in '88. They tried to stick everybody they could in there to get it to rework, and it didn't, because they didn't take in mind the fact of the chemistry involved. Okay. And when they tried the NWO, and I didn't really watch a lot of wrestling at that time, but they were trying to get this gang mentality. You have this gang and that gang and this gang and that gang. Well, the first gang mentality was the Horsemen. You'd had tag teams, but you didn't have that all for one for all type that we had. Now the thing is, we were all the best performers. Okay, I mean, we could take guys that really were not great performers and make them great performers night in and night out, and we could carry the load, and we could entertain the people to a level that they had never, that nobody else could do. And so if there is any comparison, it would be in the performance level versus the concept level. Does that make sense? I hope.
I think so, yeah.
Moving on, a question from these readers wants to know what memories do you have of yourself and Arn winning the NWA Tag Team titles from the Rock and Roll Express, and how high does that rank on your career highlights?
It was always a joy to wrestle Robert and Ricky, because I mean the wrestling fans loved them so much, and so it was easy to have matches with them, and winning the tag team championships. I mean it's the wrestling business is not. It's a performance. It's a real interactive performance. It's not who you actually go out there and beat. So I mean, you win the political war, or you win this, or you're the guy that's drawing the money, so they put the belt on you, that kind of stuff. So I mean, it was an achievement in that way, but it was our job to carry the company, and by making people look the best that they could look. And when we were the champions, we made people look bigger and better than they might really have been, but it was better for the company. And so that's the basic reason we got the championships.
How were the Road Warriors to work with?
The Road Warriors were fine to work with. I mean, it was they were invincible, and the people believed they were invincible, and we were good enough to make the people think and hate us so much they just wanted to watch us get beat up a bunch.
You have any thoughts about the recent passing of Road Warrior Hawk?
It is a great thing that a year and a half ago he gave his heart to the Lord. I know where he is, but it is very, very sad in the fact that a life ends at 45 years old. It's just somebody that you have spent hours in the ring with, and working with and doing things, and there's a lot of memories that I have of him and Animal and the things that we had to do to make our company successful. And when you spent that much time sweating on a guy and bleeding on a guy, and him sweating and bleeding on you, it's just a sad thing.
How'd you get along with Lex Luger?
Lex Luger?
Mm-hmm.
I guess we got along okay. I mean, it was, we didn't really have a lot in common. And we just made things work and made things happen. And for his short stay with the Horsemen, it was beneficial. And then when he was against the Four Horsemen, it was beneficial for the company. And he was a nice guy.
What were your impressions of the Fabulous Freebirds?
The Fabulous Freebirds?
Yeah, Michael Hayes.
They were successful. I mean, they did a good job with World Class and Michael Hayes and Gordy were good performers, and Buddy Rogers, Buddy Roberts, not Buddy Rogers, Buddy Roberts, was God. I wrestled him for 100 years. It seemed like hours and hours and hours and hours with Johnny Valentine critiquing us when he wrestled for us as Johnny's brother, and I got a lot of time and a lot of respect for those guys.
You had some of the formative matches with Sting when he teamed with Barry Windham and Dusty Rhodes. Did you see Sting to be the big star that he became?
Yeah. I mean, it was. He had tremendous charisma and stuff. And it is if you can carry the push, if you've got the charisma and the natural ability to carry the push, and he could. I mean, time proved that. Arn and I wrestled him and Nikita Koloff in Baltimore one time. That in a 20-minute time limit draw that was one of the greatest matches ever. And when he put the Scorpion Deathlock on me,
yeah,
the place exploded, and it was just he was a very talented young man.
What led to you leaving for the WWF?
What led to me leaving?
Yeah, to go to the WWF.
I wanted to go back and reform the Four Horsemen.
No, going to the WWF. Oh yeah, I guess. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Daniel.
You previously worked in the NWA and then moved to the WWF. Comparing the two companies together, what were your impressions of the two when they compare and contrast?
Well, when I left and went to the WWF, it was still the NWA, and
right.
We worked for Crockett Promotions, and they hadn't sold their company to TBS yet. And it was a wrestling company. Vince's company is a wrestling company, and it was just a different cities, different promoters, but mostly it was a different philosophy on what they were trying to accomplish each night. One's demographics were basically blue collar, beer drinking people from 21 to age 36, and then the other one's demographics were like 10 to 21 kids and teenagers, and a lot of that was just the makeup of what the WWF had been for many, many years, and what those kind of things were. But they were not into blood, guts, and they were into shows a little bit more. So it was a little bit of an adaptation, but the wrestling fans appreciated the things that Arn and I did, no matter at what level.
Yourself and Arn won the WWF Tag Team titles from Demolition on an edition of Saturday Night Main Event. What memories do you have from that match?
It was a great match. I mean, the biggest memories I've got from the WWF were the simple fact that Dick Ebersol, who was the president of NBC Sports at the time, requested that Arn and I be on every show. And we were on 4 of the 5 events in 1989. And, that was a great thrill that he requested us, and they put us right after Hogan on TV, and we kept the ratings up, and so that was kind of a big plus.
You also worked with the Hart Foundation at SummerSlam 1989. Did you see Bret Hart as being the big star he became?
Bret Hart was a very good technician and was a great wrestler, and we had some great matches with those two guys leading up to SummerSlam, and there again, it is Bret was capable of carrying the push that he got, and see that's a lot of the image you portray. Can the wrestling fans follow and believe what you say and do? And so that's kind of where that was, and he could easily do it, and he did it. So that's a good thing.
You were managed at that time by Bobby Heenan. How do you get along with Bobby?
Don't really get along with. I mean, I haven't talked to Bobby in years, and I've got some, and I don't really have anything. I just, we're just out of the way and haven't talked to him in a long time.
Not to sound like I'm stirring anything, but in a recent interview we did with him, he said you, quote, have a chip on your shoulder. And a couple other people also said that. Do you have any response to that?
What?
I don't know. He just said you generally have a chip on your shoulder. That's pretty much his quote.
I generally have a chip on my shoulder.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that could be easily understood because I don't like to talk. I wasn't. I took care of my business and stayed very much to myself. So anybody that is I've taken personality tests since then with companies and stuff that I work for, and my basic personality is to be an introvert, and introverts stay to themselves, and when you're in a group or a big room of people, anybody that stays to themselves and is not outgoing and gregarious gets whatever else the case may be. And I can't help the perception that people have or did have on me. I enjoyed work, and that's about where I was. I let my performance in the ring do my talking and where I was, and then I went about my business.
What was the reason behind your short stay in the WWF that time around?
That's the only time I was with the WWF.
I could have told you that, Daniel.
And I left the WWF because Arn and I wanted to get one of those big lucrative contracts that WCW was passing out, and that's why we were going back to reform the Four Horsemen.
How did you enjoy your stay in the AWA?
I didn't really have a stay in the AWA. I worked up there a couple of shots. I didn't really work for them.
What led to you deciding to stop wrestling full time?
Well, in November of 1989, the Lord changed my life. I had never known who Jesus Christ was, or have any idea of a spiritual side of life. And on November 13th, 1989, I was awakened to Christ in my life, and the presence of God in my life, and He had a different plan for me. And He changed many aspects of my life, drug usage, alcohol usage, chasing women, a lot of those things. And I now spend the majority part of my life traveling and speaking to people that are incarcerated or people that are just hurting and bound up with drug addictions and alcohol addictions and wanting to know how to get their life back on track. And the only thing that will fix that is when your heart gets fixed, and only God can fix a person's heart.
If it's not too personal, can I ask what helped you find Jesus?
Flunking a drug test and being fired by 2 wrestling companies.
Years later, you did the Heroes of Wrestling pay-per-view. What is your memory of that evening?
What do I remember of that evening?
Yeah.
I'm old, I'm fat, I'm out of shape, and still had the best match.
Hey, did you see any? Did you get the chance to see the tape of that show?
No.
Okay, because
God, it had to be horrifying.
I have the tape of it, and the announcer, it was Dutch Mantel and this other guy who I never saw before and haven't seen since, was doing the color, and he seemed to have some kind of a homosexual crush on Stan Lane during the entire match. It was quite frightening, actually.
Oh, was it?
Oh yeah, you'd have to see it to believe it. It was amazing how hard he was putting him over.
Oh my goodness gracious! Well, see that was a big night in my career, because when you are when the marquee out in front of the building says that we have wrestling's greats, the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov and Jake the Snake and whoever else, Jake that night, and many other stars. And when you're one of the and many other stars, you understand that the wrestling business has passed you by.
When Vincent McMahon bought W.
Pardon me, go ahead.
When Vince McMahon bought WCW, what was going through your mind?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear all that question.
I'll repeat.
Ask it, Daniel. Did you have any opinion when the WCW was sold to Vince McMahon at all?
No, I just kind of wonder how Vince bought an $84 million company for $8 million.
Do you think that eventually was going to hurt the business, or?
You guys would have to make that. You know, competition is always good. This country was built on competition. You know, but it's the way it was being run was ridiculous. You know, and you know, it was only a matter of time before Turner and Time Warner said, "Hey, we're not just going to pour money down a bottomless pit. They're not returning. They're not carrying their weight." And any company that's that big, all the departments have to carry their own weight. You know, so I mean, it's like that. But it is. I don't really have anything else to say on that. But
do you watch any wrestling today?
Very little. Where I live, I don't have cable, and I don't have that stuff. So it is hard to see it. You know, every now and then I watch a little bit on TV. When I'm in a hotel room sometimes, but I watch very, very little.
Do you keep in contact with anybody from the old days?
No, not really. I guess the one I probably talk to the most is Shawn Michaels. His life, he's gone through a life-changing experience with the Lord a year or so ago, and so I talk to him occasionally just to see how what's up and how he's doing.
And well, we'd like to now go into the word associations, if that's okay with you. Basically, we'll ask you, give you a name, and then you can either give your first reaction to that name, or if you've got a story you'd like to tell, you can tell the story. Is that okay with you?
Okay.
Excellent. Okay, the first name on the list is Arn Anderson.
Arn Anderson?
Yes.
The Enforcer.
Baby Doll.
Baby Doll. A bombshell that could whip everybody in the room.
Missy Hyatt.
Missy Hyatt?
Yeah.
Don't know her well and really don't have any opinion.
Ole Anderson.
Ole Anderson?
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the people that I learned stuff from because he took the wrestling business from a very matter-of-fact level and instead of emotional, and it really helped me at different times.
Johnny Valiant?
Johnny Valiant?
Mm-hmm.
Knew him very little.
Jose Lothario.
Do what?
Jose Lothario.
Jose Lothario was one of the greatest performers that the business ever saw.
Sid Vicious.
Sid Vicious. The only time I think I ever met him was at a gym in Memphis one time, and really don't have a big opinion. He's a great big guy though.
Randy Savage.
Randy Savage made a lot of money and was a great performer.
Ric Flair.
Ric Flair, at certain times of the business, he was one of the best champions that the business ever had.
Hulk Hogan.
Hulk Hogan was probably the closest thing to Ed Strangler Lewis that the business has seen since Ed Strangler Lewis. He just dominated box offices, and it didn't make too much difference who he was wrestling there for quite a while.
Jim Crockett.
Jim Crockett, successful, and didn't know how successful he was, or could have been.
Vince McMahon.
Vince McMahon, the smartest guy in wrestling.
Daniel, you have any?
No. Do you have any more, Dan?
No, I don't. We really appreciate this time, and is there anything you'd like to say to your fans?
I just appreciate the people that still remember, and thank you for being part of the interactive interview, and it's just been fun doing this.
It was fun having you on, and we really appreciate it. It's been an honor for us.
No problem.
Stay tuned for more from the interactive interview.